Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for allowing me to be here again this week. And I count it a privilege to be here in your presence today, and especially with the topic I'll be talking about. 50 years ago, I would not have been able to talk to this many people at the same time unless they were protesters or conscientious objectors. Driving here along Highway 32, I noticed 4 signs depicting names of soldiers that were fallen. And I couldn't help but wonder how many were from Vietnam. Some people think I am obsessed with the Vietnam War and with the occurrence of PTSD, but actually I feel quite liberated being able to speak about it now after 50 years. Ordinarily, I wouldn't be speaking about it. And for 50 years, I didn't tell anybody that I was in Vietnam. My brothers and I, we used to play Army across the street in the park, and we'd use BB guns. We used BB guns and rocks and slingshots, and the rocks were actually our grenades. And the object was to capture the enemy flag and to plant the American flag there to show that we were winners, we were victorious, we were fighting for freedom, we were fighting for democracy. And we used to have a lot of fun doing that. And it was instilled in us that it was our patriotic duty to serve our country and to fight and to die for the cause. 5 of us served during the Vietnam era, and all 5 of us were shocked when we come back from overseas. We come back and none of us received a hero's welcome, along with thousands of other people, thousands of other veterans. Can you imagine coming home after being in war and coming home and seeing a sign that says, "Soldiers and dogs, keep off the grass"? What kind of welcome is that? We were treated with disrespect and dishonor. In 2015, there were 250,000 remaining veterans, and 1 out of 3 of those are dealing with PTSD. The point I'm trying to make is that they're people just like you and I. They're ordinary people. When was the last time you thanked a veteran for their service? For most of us, it would have been after the Kuwait War. Suppose I told you that that phrase caused a lot of Vietnam veterans to commit suicide. There was a great increase in the suicide rate during that time because those people coming back from Kuwait were treated as heroes, and those coming back from Vietnam were treated as the enemy. Currently, 30 Vietnam vets commit suicide every day. And many of you are too young to understand how unpopular that war really was. You know, war is not a pleasant thing at all by any means. People get wounded, people get physically and mentally wounded, and statistically, the number killed and the number wounded would normally be posted, and those that are mentally upset by that, for the most part, was disregarded until 1970, when they diagnosed those coming back from Vietnam having PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, and that's all it is. It's a stress disorder, but again, we're ordinary people just like you. The government has done a great job in overturning the public opinion about Vietnam. They have different programs. They have, they're helping the veterans in a tremendous way, and they're painting this picture like these people coming back, popular war or not popular war, that they are people. They're human beings. They're just like you and I. The rejection that they felt, though, coming back is deeply embedded in many of them. No one wanted to be there. That wasn't like, hey, I want to go to Vietnam. It was, I got drafted. The draft dodgers, some of those went to Canada. They fled to Canada and they come back and they received a full pardon. So you can imagine what those that got drafted, those that did their duty, those that went on to Vietnam, they come back and, and all they had to do was really go to Canada. It just doesn't make any sense. But society received them back. Like, hey, you guys did a great job by dodging the draft. You have to ask yourself, how can you train a soldier to fight and then tell him he can't win? How can you train a soldier to fight and tell him that he's not going to be very popular when he comes home? How can you train a soldier to fight and to find out he thinks he's fighting for your freedom, and at the same time you're not, you disrespect him? Veterans coming home felt like they had no country, where those that had no country coming home had a country. The walking away would have been painful enough. The rejection on the home front was even worse than that. The war and the rejection, they played on the minds of many people. And some knew immediately that they had a problem, and they sought help. For some, it didn't manifest itself for 50 years or more. And others, it didn't affect at all. But society treated them all the same. If they had PTSD, if they had, and you have to understand what some of the symptoms are: anger, anxiety, frustration, depression, hyperactive. Like, jumping at the sound of a bomb, or I say a bomb, but I meant like a cherry bomb or a firecracker. All I'm trying to tell you is, people that are dealing with PTSD, they cannot help jumping. They cannot help their mind saying fight or flight. They can't help that. But it's a common thing. But the PTSD is not as uncommon as you think. There are more people in the society that have PTSD than there are in the military. And many of those stem from the fact when they were children, they developed the PTSD, and they have depression, they have anxiety, they have stress, they have all the same symptoms, but society looks at them as being ordinary people. And what I want to stress to you today is that we are ordinary people, just like everybody else. And to put a sign up saying soldiers and dogs, or dogs and soldiers, keep off the grass, that is totally uncalled for. Ladies and gentlemen, the point I'm trying to make is that we are ordinary people. We deal with stress, we deal with, and of course it's, disorder stress, I should say. And many of the veterans, they have trouble holding down jobs, they have trouble with their families, they have, just trouble in society. But they cannot help that. They're trying their best, and the war that they're fighting is within. That they're not a danger to anybody. They're more of a danger to themselves. But that war is within them, not within anybody else. And people act like, oh, I'm afraid of them because they have PTSD, or I'm not going to anger that person because I'm afraid he's going to tear my head off and shove it down my neck. That's not the way they are. They're people, they're ordinary people. My three brothers currently are going to VA for anger management. And they go down there, and my one brother is definitely very, very angry. I mean, he's very angry. He only has one arm, but he's very angry, he's very bitter. Several weeks ago, I talked to a fellow that told me that one of his tenants used to be a really nice guy. He was a really nice guy, and then all at once he flipped. And now he's mad at everybody. He's mad at all the tenants. He gets into arguments with all of them. He hates the post office service. He hates this. He hates that. He hates the waterman. He hates everything. He hates society. And he said, I don't understand what happened. And I said, well, I do. That PTSD probably just kicked in after 50 years of living on his own. And I said, he's living by himself, right, because he's not able to have a relationship. He doesn't have any family around him. He's isolated. It's a typical thing of PTSD. you know, I'm appealing to your compassion today to look at people that are dealing with PTSD and have compassion on them, have understanding on them. You know, all of you have seen ads on television about rescuing the poorly treated animals, right? And many of you have donated money, and many of you have given your time to help a poorly treated animal. And what I'm asking you today is to extend that same courtesy to Vietnam veterans, the poorly treated veterans. And when you see one that's homeless, stop and talk to him. Stop and help. Don't just ignore him. He's ordinary, just like you. Thank you so much for your time. And the next time you see a veteran, salute to him. Thank you so much.